All right. So stress kills. And so in this session, what we're going to try and look at is to define stress, look at the common stressors, and then look at the effects of stress on the body. And then finally, we have a discussion on some of the strategies that we can employ to uh, to deal with stress. So, what is stress? Anyone wants to start us in this discussion by trying to figure what stress really is? Anyone? What is stress? Many times people say, "Oh, I'm stressed out." So what is it? It's no penalty for wrong answers. Anyone? No one? Okay. Turns out that stress, there are two kinds. There's good stress and there's bad stress. Good stress is also known as eustress. And bad stress is what we call distress. There is something that is used to sort of assess, an instrument that is used to sort of assess, uh, you know, how different situations affect us. Oops, sorry. So someone mentioned here, I think, sorry, I missed that. Okay, yeah, so the perceived stress scale it's not an exact science, but it's a little instrument that is used to estimate how stress affects our bodies. I want us to do a little exercise now to use this little scale and see if it, see what we get. You take a piece of paper for those that have got access to one and read each one of these statements. I'm going to read them out for those that are using a phone, and so the print might be small. Take your paper. There are 10 statements. They are actual questions that we're going to read. Okay. Number one, please try and do this exercise as best as you can. Number one, in the last month, how often have you been upset because of something that happened unexpectedly? The month of January. Again, it's not an exact science. We're looking for estimates. You put that in the last month, how often have you been upset because of something that happened unexpectedly?
Hey, Dr.
Yep.
Question. Do we have a scale? Are we talking about, say, a scale of 1 to 5 or 1 to 10, and then you rate it?
No, you just put, it's like this, how many times, you just put if it is twice, if it is three times, just do that.
Okay.
So, how many times in the last month have you been upset because of something that happened unexpectedly? Question number two, in the last month, how often have you felt that you are unable to control the important things in your life? Question number three, in the last month, how often have you felt nervous and stressed. Question number 4. If it is 0, you put 0. If it's 1, 2 times, 3 times, whatever number. Question number 4. In the last month, how often have you felt confident about your ability to handle your personal problems? Question number 5. In the last month, how often have you felt that things were going your way? How often have you felt? Again, we are not going to mark this or anything. It is just going to be for your own use. In the last month, how often have you felt that things were going your way? Question number 6. In the last month, how often have you found that you could not cope with all the things that you had to do? Question number 7. In the last month, how often have you been able to control irritations in your life? Question number 8. In the last month, how often have you felt that you were on top of things? Question number 9. In the last month, how often have you been angered because of things that happened that were outside your control? Question number 10. In the last month, how often have you felt difficulties that were piling up so high that you could not overcome them? Are we finished?
Yes.
Okay, if we're finished, we can now try and look at the scale. This is again, is for your own use. We're not going to share it here. Okay. First, you reverse your scores for question 4, 5, 7, and 8. So on these 4 questions, change the scores like this. 0, if you had put 0, change that one to 4. Question 4, 5, 7, and 8. If you had 0, you make it a 4. If you had 1, you make it a 3. If you had 2, you make it a 2. If you had 3, you make it a 3. If you had a 4, you make it a 0. Am I confusing you? Question, okay, just a moment. So you see here, question 4, 5. Sorry, just a moment. So question 4, 5, 7, and 8. 4, 5, 7, and 8. 4 says, in the last month, how often have you felt confident about your ability to handle your personal problems? That's question 4. 5, in the last month, how often have you felt that things were going your way? Question 7, in the last month, how often have you been able to control irritations in your life? Question 8, in the last month, how often have you felt that you were on top of things? So for So on those questions, 4, 5, 7, and 8, anywhere where you add a 0, you change that to 4. Where you add a 1, change that to a 3. Where you add a 2, remains 2. Where you add a 3, remain to 1. And when you add a 4, make it 0. Now add them all up then to get your total. So you can write down the total. After you have changed them that way, reverse them that way, work out the total. All right. If you worked out the total, now the individual scores on this scale can range from 0 to 40, with the higher scores indicating higher perceived stress. So scores ranging from 0 to 13 will be considered low-level stress. Scores ranging from 14 to 26 would be considered moderate stress. Scores ranging from 27 to 40 would be considered high perceived stress. Now, this scale is interesting and important because your perception of what is happening in your life is the most important thing. Consider the idea that two students would have the exact same events and experiences in their lives for the last month, but depending on their perception, John's total score would put him in the low stress category, whereas Dan's score would put him in the high stress category. So nothing can bring you peace except yourself. Now I'm going to ask what your thoughts are about this little exercise. What was your impression of that exercise? What were your feelings about it? I'm happy for you to unmute yourself and share with us. Anyone?
Yeah,
Yes.
I'll,
Yes.
it's Wilson here.
Okay.
And yeah, that surprised me. My score was 18, which was moderate stress, and my perception was I had very low stress, but actually some of those questions made me feel there are some areas that perhaps maybe experiencing stress.
Thank you. Anyone else? What did this exercise bring to your mind and thoughts or feelings about it? Was there anything that surprised you with your score, and why? Anyone? Remember the statement that was made is that really it is our perception of the events or stressors that we experience is what is most important. The perception, not the events themselves. Anyone else want to make a comment before we move? How this activity made you feel? And were you surprised by your score? If so, why? If not, why not? Anyone, you can unmute yourself and share your thoughts. Thanks a lot, Wilson.
Hi, Doctor, and hi, everyone.
Yes, Christine, welcome. You can go ahead.
You. Yeah, I think my experience was similar to Wilson's in that I was kind of surprised. I too had like mild, moderate stress. But I think what that exercise does, it kind of brings things to the fore. It gives you that self-awareness. You ask yourself those pertinent questions. And I think it's good to do that exercise and kind of help you identify that actually you're not where you think you are. You could be somewhere else. I think that was a really useful exercise for me. Thank you.
Thank you. When I first did it, there were surprises too. The times when we actually are not able to understand fully our emotions. And so there will be emotions that are underpinning whatever perceptions that we have. And those perceptions lead us into actions that sometimes we cannot explain until we look back, with the benefit of hindsight, which means that the idea of understanding our emotions is something that we can always improve. It's not like IQ. It is something that we can actually improve, the ability to understand our emotions and be able to tell what is going on and why we're feeling whichever way we are feeling. Okay. So here is a very simple definition of stress. We'll come to this again and again in this talk. Stress is our response to any demand, events, person, place, or any other thing that poses a challenge or threat to our well-being. The word to underline here is our response. And the next one is poses a threat or a challenge to our well-being. Anything. And so how we respond to that is what constitutes stress. And we saw earlier that there are two types of stress. There is good stress and there is bad stress. Good stress is called eustress. Bad stress is called distress. And so that is what we have. So the next thing is then to look at those things that pose a challenge or a threat to our well-being. They are called stressors. Way back in the 1920s, Walter P. Cannon at Harvard described what he called a fight or flight response. And essentially, he observed that this one is a survival mechanism. When we encounter a life-threatening situation, a surge of stress hormones prepares us to fight or to flee from that danger. As a result, our hearts beat faster, our muscles tense up, and we are suddenly on high alert. That is what he described as a fight or flight response. Consider you were walking. Sometime in the course of this program, I showed you some pictures of a man at a game park in Uganda who ran faster than a hippo. Now, the hippos run at a speed of 40 kilometers an hour. That is the speed at which Usain Bolt won the 100-meter race. It is fast. This man was not a trained athlete. He was just an ordinary man walking in the park, but he happened to disturb a hippo that was grazing somewhere, and it came out of the bushes and went after him. Hippos kill a lot of people in Africa. The teeth, once they snap a person, they can break you into two. And so the hippo was so furious, he was going to kill him. This man was able to summon the strength, the speed, and all that he was able to run away from that danger. So if you measured his blood pressure, if you measured his heart rate, if you measured his, the rate at which he was breathing, if you measured the amount of cortisol that was going in his body to cause hormones such as adrenaline and the others to be produced, it was a crisis point. Even if he had a feeling of going to wee, at that point the bladder could be silenced, like it or not. More priority places, like the leg muscles, the heart, the eyes, and the rest, got the necessary supply of nutrients and other chemicals needed to actually run from that danger. Once he has finished and is free from that danger, he sits down and all systems now settle. The heartbeat slows down, the breathing comes to normal, all the other blood vessels open to those arteries, urgent organs, and so the man starts to go about this life. So the sympathetic nervous system, there are two in the body, parasympathetic and sympathetic. The sympathetic nervous system is the one that kicks in to help when we are faced with this kind of danger. It increases metabolism. Metabolism is really breakdown of food to produce energy. It increases that so we can have energy to run. Blood pressure goes up so that it can drive, send those nutrients and blood and oxygen to all of the needed places that need the supplies. The heart rate and the breathing rate increases, so more oxygen is delivered across the body and more nutrients are delivered. The pupils dilate, they open up, so you see where you are running to. And then blood vessels from other non-essential organs at that particular time, they constrict so that blood is shunted away from the less important, less urgent organs to the more urgent ones for use. And all of these things work together to enable us to fight with this challenge or to flee from the distressful or dangerous situation. But once this event is over, the danger is gone, another system called the parasympathetic system or parasympathetic nervous system kicks in to calm us down now, to reverse, to reduce the amount of cortisol that was produced, the adrenaline levels of, and so that serves to reduce the effects of those stress hormones that we know as cortisol and the others. So it is a survival mechanism that is actually designed to help us. Anyone felt what is commonly described as feeling like butterflies in your stomach? It is because the lining of our intestines has got a huge surface area. And there are plenty of bacteria in that place. And there are plenty of nerve endings. And particularly the bacteria in our guts are involved in what is known as a gut-brain connection. A great deal of stuff that happens in our gut affects how our brains function, how our nervous system functions. I'm talking about the central nervous system, which of course mainly is the brain. And so those trillions of bacteria that we have in our gut are actually involved. And this is important for anyone wanting to change lifestyle, because what we put in our stomachs determines the kind of bacteria we have in our gut. And in one of the sessions that we're going to have, perhaps in the next 2 weeks or so, I'll be talking about the gut bacteria. They're called microbiota, and what is happening with these bacteria. So I'll leave that one until later. But they are involved in the functioning of the central nervous system. So stress then is your body's way of responding to any kind of pressure or demand. And so is stress bad? No, not all stress is bad. Eustress is good stress. It is stress that arises from the demand of pleasant or fun activities. For instance, if you are going on vacation, or there's a wedding coming, promotions, or anything running, or when you go to run, is a good level, of stress that says, for instance, hey, tomorrow we are flying. Let me sleep early so I am able to wake up early to catch my early morning flight, because of the place we are going is an exciting thing that we are looking forward to. So this kind of stress helps us get ready for things that we need to do. It is called eustress or good stress. Distress is the bad stress. It is stress we experience in regard to negative demands, which we must adapt. It's when we experience stress for too much of the time. For instance, you can be cramming for final exams. You have a very heavy workload that you have to continue holding, or you have a troubled relationship or other things like that. So the body's response to high levels of stress, almost without exception, the amount of cortisol in our blood system is raised every time we are under stress. If, for instance, I was upset with Wilson, and I said I'm going to give him a piece of my mind. Not that I've ever been upset with Wilson, just using him as an example. And when I think that I'm going to give him a piece of my mind, the moment I say some harsh words to this man, the harsh words are going to offend him, are going to stress him. They are going to make, without exception, they will cause his cortisol levels to go up, because I'm irritating him, I'm offending him, I'm talking very harsh to him. But he's not the only one whose cortisol levels go up while I'm uttering these harsh words. It has been observed that in my own body too, cortisol levels go up. And so I would have to deal with that stress response as he has to. So both of us, so I normally refer this as a cortisol tree. Somebody comes to quarrel with you, they are inviting you to climb a cortisol tree with them. And you can choose to climb with them, or you choose not to climb with them. And the choosing not to climb with them is avoiding answering back with harsh words. That way you can remain at the bottom of the tree, they climb alone. When they now need, because whatever goes up must come down. So when they are now finished with climbing, they'll come down and find you down on the ground, and then you can now talk softly and calmly without emotion. Cortisol levels interfere with learning and memory. This is quite frightening. If cortisol levels remain high consistently, it does interfere with our learning and memory. It also lowers immune function. It causes us to gain weight. It keeps blood pressure up. It also raises our cholesterol levels. It increases the risk of heart disease or stroke. So any invitation to climb a cortisol tree, do what Wilson chooses to do. Refuse to climb with anyone who invites you to climb a cortisol tree, because stress kills. All of these things that are high levels of cortisol in a sustained manner. Oh, sorry, my screen sharing stopped. I don't know why. Let me see. Yeah.
No, it's okay. It is working now. It's all good.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it is all
I-
good.
Now I can't see it myself.
Yeah, we can see it. Yes.
This is very interesting. Let me try and find it. I do not have my screen. Can you see it?
Yes, we can see it. It's working.
Okay, thank you.
Mm.
Okay, so anybody inviting you to climb a cortisol tree with them, the best thing to do is to actually not climb, because the sustained cortisol levels cause a lot of trouble. The next thing we have is
Dr.
yep.
Sorry to interrupt. I actually can't see your screen now. I could see it initially before you stopped sharing.
Okay, there is something that is going on here. I don't know what is going on. Can you see it now?
Yes, it's back. Thank you. And can I ask a question kindly?
Yes, go ahead. Who's talking?
My name is Anne.
Oh, Anne. Yes. Anne, thank you for waking up so early early or late night now where you are?
No, it's in the morning.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, Anne.
So I wanted to ask from the previous slide, from what you had presented earlier, during flight and fight response, there is increased metabolism. So I'm trying to understand at what point, because of maybe the sustained stress, do you start gaining weight? Is there like a period of time that if you have sustained stress for this period of time, now the reverse happens? You start gaining weight instead of, losing weight, maybe because of increased metabolism.
The mechanism is quite, it's not too complicated. When there is cortisol released, because every time we are facing a threat, the body produces cortisol. Cortisol causes sugar to be released from the liver, so that even if you had nothing, even if you had been fasting for 2 days and a hippo emerges from the bushes, it wants to kill you, you will find energy to run. Where is that energy coming from? Cortisol causes the liver to, because normally the body stores sugar in form of what is called glucagon in the liver. That is pumped out into the bloodstream to be used and to be burned down for this emergency. What happens then is when you dash, the sugar may be used. But if it was not a situation where you needed to run, it was sustained low-level stress. For instance, you have trouble at work, a boss or a cantankerous neighbor that puts you under pressure continuously, or a boss who does that. So you have sustained levels, high levels of cortisol. This makes the liver to continually pump out glucagon. But when the glucagon comes and finds you don't need that energy, it changes that into fat and is now stored. That is what gives us weight. And it can be over a period of time. There is another, I'll come back to this point again, when we're going to see how we often respond to stress. We're coming back to that very shortly. There are other things that we do when we are stressed that also contributes to weight gain. Besides the idea that the liver pumps out sugar, which if it's not used, is converted to fat and stored, and that gives us weight. Does that answer your query, Anne?
Yes, that is clear. Thank you, Doc.
Yeah, thank you. We'll come back to the other part of that question very shortly. All right. Next one. So we seen that. The secret is, so again, stress is any demand, I'm sorry, a stressor is any demand, event, person, place, or any other thing that poses a challenge or a threat to our well-being. And when we look at how the best way to deal with stresses, the best thing that you can actually have, the only way you can succeed in actually dealing with stress is when you figure out how to manage the stressors. Because once stress has come and it's been allowed to go for long, dealing with it that way then becomes a lot harder than when you try and address the stressors. In Swahili, there's a saying that goes, usiposiba uva, utachenga ukuta. If there's a crack in the wall, if you don't fix it early, you will end up rebuilding that wall. That is the whole idea with managing stress, but we come to that in a short while. So the stress model. First, there is a stressor. That is the next thing that happens is that your body responds. Now, how you respond determines whether it becomes stress or it becomes a distress. When you encounter stressors, something happens in the brain. And of course, the frontal lobe is where decisions are made. It is the command and control center where you plan, you reason, you make judgment, you decide, and all that. Stress can disengage that part of your mind. And if it does, you just react without thinking. I remember a man who came one time to carrying his brother to a hospital where I was in Papua New Guinea. And when they arrived, they were carrying his brother on a mixed stretcher. When they arrived, we checked, the brother was dead. When I announced to them that, he started wailing, "I've killed my brother, I've killed my brother." You see, he had hit his brother with an axe on his neck. You don't hit a person with an axe in the neck and expect that person to live. But he did it without thinking. The brother had upset him. The brother had gone and dug in a portion of land where this guy had dug the previous year because the land is communal. And they came and was upset and hit him. So when stressed out, our first reaction is to use the emotional part of the brain. That is the limbic system. And this system only knows emotions. Crying, yelling, punching, arguing. So if stress has managed to disengage our frontal lobe at the command and control center, then we end up acting on the basis of emotions. And that is one of the causes of problems. I mentioned earlier sympathetic and parasympathetic. The sympathetic nervous system helps us to activate the body so that it can either fight or flee. This system increases, activity of this system increases when you're stressed, when you're in danger, when you're physically active. When, say, you go for a jog. And it causes the production of adrenaline, which gives us the strength to do the things that we need to do. The other system, the opposing system, is the parasympathetic nervous system, which helps us to calm down when we are out of that threatening situation. And it also helps us to conserve energy to be used later. And it regulates body functions like digestion, urination, and the like. It is shut down when the other one is active. When the other one is not active, the parasympathetic system. Now, what are the common stressors? Road traffic, and people that have been driving on the roads will be aware of what happens sometimes. There's something called a road rage. I've seen a taxi driver stabbed, at least on the pictures, in a road in Sydney, Australia. Somebody was so upset, stopped his car, came to this taxi driver's door, said, "Open, open, open," and then pulled out a knife and stabbed him. Road traffic can be a cause of, a huge stressor for many people. Workplace or job pressure is another thing. Change. If some people may be aware, especially ladies in the group, is one time, but a while back, we looked after a lady who had moved from a big city to a small town to a very, to a high pressure job. She comes to a clinic and says, "I've not had my period for the last 6 months. I don't know what is going on with me. And I'm not pregnant." So we kept on testing her, nothing doing. It eventually turned out that they changed the move from the city to that small town and to the new high pressure job actually is the one that shut down some of our normal body functioning processes. Once she was finally settled in that place and family came and joined her and all was going well, the body went back to its normal functioning. Change can be a major stressor. The environment can be a huge stressor. Finances, medical bills, and whatnot, and all that can be. So there are several stressors. Some more. Relationships, conflict, divorce, and all that. Separation, that is a big factor too. Now, sickness or bereavement can be a huge stressor. Poor nutrition, inadequate sleep, media overload. Wait and see, even little children that are used to watching things or playing. Children that are used to playing games on iPads, for instance, and they're so stuck to it. When that is taken from them, you take that iPad from that child and watch and see what the child does. Child can actually grab that iPad and throw it and smash it on the floor. That is when people get so used to media, it can actually turn people, can switch off or disconnect the frontal lobe from the rest of the functioning system, from dealing with this. And if you have the frontal lobe disengaged, then the emotional part determines that's how people do things, and they come and regret later. The effects of stress, there are immediate effects, and there are after effects. You can have headaches, muscle tension, tummy upsets, the heartbeat is faster, you have shallow breathing. That's why when people are distressing, you are encouraged to take deep breaths, deep, slow breaths, is because stress is frequently associated with shallow breathing. Now, but when you have persistent activation of the stress response, then the headaches persist. You can have backaches. You can have sleep disturbances. People can have fatigue. You can have anxiety. You can have worry, although anxiety and worry, they are related in a way, but they are different. You can have colds and cases of flu. Depression can set in. The digestive system is frequently affected by upsets. Asthma. Sorry, pardon me. Asthma attacks can actually flare. You can have hypertension, you can have stroke, and then of course, cardiovascular disease. Now, when people are stressed out, they naturally go out to find peace or happiness, or rather to find a way of escaping from this stressful situation. And many people find their happiness or consolation in sugary foods, fatty foods, alcohol, drugs, or any other addictions. But these things give only temporary happiness or relief, which is followed by problems. Because if somebody goes to drink to try and drown the worry, what happens is that when the alcohol gets out of the head, those problems still are there. And so the thoughts come back, and many times people go back to try and get the alcohol, drink, and to forget those problems. But again, the forgetting is only temporary. Too stressed to distress. One of the things that we really need to do when we find ourselves in that situation is to set a goal, make a plan, write it down, get the necessary support needed, and then reward ourselves, reward our actions. When we take a positive action, for instance, I've set a goal, I reward myself. I've made a plan, I reward myself. I write down this plan, so I get support. These are actions that I can actually congratulate myself for and note the results of those actions. Then we can also deliberately choose to turn bad days into good days or good days. Now, people tend to activate the fight or flight response multiple times during a typical day, usually because of situations that are annoying and stressful, although they may not be life-threatening. And so little irritations or little irritants can cause cortisol to be produced on an ongoing basis during the day. So how we deal with this, how we hold it in check, determines how we fare. These situations can include traffic jams, long lines in the grocery store, work deadlines, and so on and so forth. Or people misunderstanding you. You have good intentions. Some people think that, this person had ulterior motives, when indeed you did not have. But all those things, the stress hormones that are surging through the body actually have a toll. So over time, such low-grade chronic stress can lead to persistent high blood pressure. The heart rate can actually remain raised, and you can have continued muscle tension. Long-term effects of the fight or flight response can become very harmful, or if we resist it frequently or is prolonged. When high levels of stress hormones are secreted often, they can contribute to a number of stress-related medical conditions: heart disease, gastrointestinal disease, adrenal fatigue, and so on. Robert Sapolsky, professor at Stanford, once said, stress can wreak havoc with your metabolism. It can raise your blood pressure. It can burst your white blood cells. It can make you flatulent, can ruin your sex life. And if that's not enough, it can actually damage your brain. When you get time, you write down the The name of this guy is called he was called Alexis Saint Martin. I want you to write it down, and then you go and Google it. Google it to see the experiment that was done on him. It's we don't have much time to go over this, but I will encourage you to go and Google. You will find it on YouTube. An amazing experiment. The guy was a soldier. While at war, he was shot, and the gunshot ended up creating a hole from the skin into his stomach. Not the tummy, but the stomach where food goes. And because of this unusual thing, one of the doctors who was treating him observed that when this man was upset, there are certain juices that spat out of that hole from his stomach. And when he was happy and relaxed, nothing happened. So they actually ended up putting a camera into his stomach and could upset him to see what happens inside the stomach. And the findings were amazing. I'll leave it there and encourage you to go and listen to the findings of the experiment. If somebody doesn't find this, let me know next week. I might play that clip for you. Alexis Saint Martin. The whole point of this experiment was to determine that when we are stressed, there's something that happens in the stomach. So the idea of, I can feel butterflies in my stomach is actually a real experience. The stomach, the gut responds in a certain way when we are stressed. There's a connection between gut and brains. The adrenal glands are these little yellow things above the kidneys, and that's where adrenaline and other stress hormones like cortisol are produced. How do we deal with it? There are negative ways of dealing with stress. A lot of time people use some of these negative methods, and they are easy to use, but they add stress to the body basically. Alcohol, smoking, using drugs, overeating, and the caffeine. Check how much coffee people drink when they're stressed and how much they drink when they're actually not stressed. It is what we call an escapist way, a way of escaping from this internal stress environment that we have. Positive ways of coping with stress. You can actually play classical music, and I would encourage anyone to try this at home. One psychologist in California said, when people go to his office very anxious or very stressed, he simply plays classical music for about 20 minutes, sometimes 30 minutes. He leaves them with classical music in the waiting area. By the time they are ready to go in to see him, you find their anxiety is actually nearly gone, if not gone completely, with just classical music for about 20 minutes. So classical or relaxing music can do wonders in terms of stress relief. Exercise is been rated as the best antidepressant. Its effect on people that are suffering depression is exactly the same or even better than the antidepressant medication. Exercise. There is something that it causes to be produced in the brain that causes us to get instant relief from those stressful feelings. Having positive attitudes that can make anyone do what Wilson suggested. Somebody invites you to climb the cortisol tree with them. Instead of having negative feelings toward a person, you look at them and say, hey buddy, and I see what you're trying to get me into. I'm not going up there with you. You decide not to take on a negative attitude towards this person. You look through what they're trying to suggest, and that can help you avoid stressors. Now, managing our time, because many times the way we, time causes us stress. Managing our time managing our time well can help us avoid, and taking breaks and meditation. But I'm not talking about the other kind of meditation where that is almost like taking a drug. These days, there's what is called mindful meditation, where people are encouraged to shut their minds. People are basically encouraged to stop all thought processes. That is what it is yoga, basically. That is not the kind I'm talking about, because once the thoughts come back, Solanas, can you please mute yourself? Some noise in the background. So there is this other kind, the meditation kind of stuff that is common nowadays. It is like taking a drug. Once people do meditation, or better called self-hypnosis, for that time when you're not thinking about the problems, you're quite okay. Once you stop, could you, Bundi, could you please mute yourself? It's a bit of noise in the background there. So once we stop the thought processes that is normally recommended in the Eastern type of meditation, we are like someone who has taken alcohol, and you forget, you stop thinking about these stressors until the stuff, the thoughts start coming back again, and you go back to meditation or to that mindfulness meditation. It is an escapist way. It does not provide. The meditation I'm talking about is being thoughtful. So you can look at a book that you read that was quite exciting, and you now think about it, because to meditate is to think. You think about something exciting that you had either read or a story you heard. Dwell on this. You find that it does give you relief if the stressors have ended up giving you stress. Immediate actions that you can take. We can consciously change our breathing. We see anxiety or stress is usually characterized by shallow breaths. And so you take deep breaths, deep, slow breaths, and we think. And what you think, you look at realistic things that may give you a chance to look at that stressor in a more holistic way. And you relax your muscles by doing exercises or stretches that you can do. The next thing you can do is what self-care really is, the practice of taking action to preserve or improve your own health. It is a routine. It is a lifestyle. So we established a way that can help us do things that don't complicate our lives, that actually make it easier. Now, one of the things is having regular sleep time, exercise, relax, and eating well. In short, adopting a healthy lifestyle. We've looked at that: regular physical activity, adequate sleep, a healthy diet, relaxing music, classical, or enjoying the outdoors. Benefits of these strategies, like most things we're doing, lifestyle change is not easy. But when we implement this, we can actually be able to establish, routines that actually stay with us. So stress relieving strategies if we master them, they can help us greatly. Now, one of the ways we can deal with stressors is to lower our expectations. If I was expecting my spouse to understand exactly how I want for instance, if they are doing something for me, if I wanted to expect them to do it exactly as I could do it myself, and they do it to a level that is not exactly as I wanted, then I start to think that, oh, look, you didn't do it well and whatnot. Of course, that is a source of a stressor for me. So I can lower expectations, knowing that this is another person. The way they know to do this thing might not be exactly the same way I want it. And so I will be grateful for how well they do it, so long as they've done it to the best. We want to limit or reduce exposure to stressful situations, or we want to clarify why we have worries or concerns, because some of our worries or concerns may be unfounded, may be mistaken. So we need to look at them objectively and see whether they are actually founded. Sometimes we have worries that are unfounded that can lead to us experiencing a stressful response. So we need to look at why we are doing certain things. So managing stress really, as Andrew Weil said, managing stress has a lot to do with how we worry and how we manage worry. And of course, the way we manage it has a lot to do with where we focus our attention. Where is the attention? When something happens, where is the attention? Are we looking at how this thing is going to destroy us, or we are looking at what ability we have to be able to handle this? Because there's what is called the stress equation, where stress equals to resources minus the stressor, or minus the demand. So if I have enough resources, for instance, I'm having, say, financial pressure. The thing I need, the bill I need to pay is worth $500. In my account, there's only $100. So the resources I have amount to $100, but the demand is for $500. And so 100 take away 500, you remain with minus 400. In other words, what I have is negative. The result is negative, which is bad stress. But if I've got $500 in my account, the demand is for $100, I have opposed to 400 that is still used. That is good stress. So stress really, whether it is stress or distress, it depends on the resources you have and the demands that I put on your body. But we can reduce those demands. We can change how those stressors actually, affect us by changing the way we view them. Things you can do: number one, adequate sleep, 6 to 8 hours. 2, be physically active. If you can do 30 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes really, of just walking every day. Some people like to swim, but just walking, eat regularly and healthy meals, avoid drugs, take time to relax every day. You can go to a park, walk in nature, fresh air, enjoy time with family and friends. Do not overcommit in tasks and limit your demands. If I live like where I live and I want to go to Wilson's place, I know it's a fair distance and it's a Friday afternoon. I know there's going to be traffic on the road. And then I say to Wilson, I'll be there in 30 minutes. now that I've promised, I'm going to try and see if I can be there. When I get to the road and find it's packed, I will be thinking, now look, I told Wilson I'll be there in 30 minutes. Now it's been 1 hour. Now it's been an hour and 15 minutes. So we need to be realistic and limit our demands. If I know I should focus, this place is going to be jam-packed, then Wilson, I'll be there in about 2 hours. If I don't get there in 2 hours, then perhaps the traffic is still very heavy. If I find it's quite going to be too late, I might as well come another day or a different time. That is managing a potential stressor. We need to try and be organized. You can use a to-do list, etc. And when you have too much on your plate, you share the tasks, delegate, or identify priorities. Cut back on commitments. Make life simple. We don't want to complicate our lives. And undertake change. No change at a time, change one thing at a time, and not several changes at the same time. Relaxation, of course, is the antidote to stress. Frequent breaks and feeling tense, practice slow breathing, and listen to relaxing music or white noise in the background, and resolve any conflicts between you and anyone else in an amicable manner. I was in class one time with a lady who was not spoken